In the summer of 1950, four physicists walked into a lunchroom at Los Alamos National Laboratory. They had been talking about flying saucers and a recent New Yorker cartoon blaming missing trash cans on aliens. The conversation drifted. They sat down. They ordered food. And then, somewhere between the soup and the main course, Enrico Fermi looked up from his plate and asked a question so simple that it has haunted science for 76 years. Where is everybody? He did not shout it. He did not write it down. He did not publish a paper. He asked it the way a man asks about the weather, and the men around him, Edward Teller, Herbert York, Emil Konopinski, understood immediately what he meant. The galaxy is old, 13.6 billion years old. Our sun is a latecomer. There have been stars burning for 9 billion years before our planet even formed. If intelligent life is possible, and we are the proof that it is, then somewhere out there across 200 billion stars in this galaxy alone, someone should have gotten here first. Someone should have built ships. Someone should have sent signals. Someone should have left a footprint, a probe, a whisper, anything. And yet the sky is silent. That silence is the paradox. Not the absence of aliens, the absence of evidence where evidence should be overwhelming. Fermi's casual lunch remark became the most disturbing question in modern astronomy, because no one has answered it. Not in 1950, not now. In 2015, the astronomer Stephen Webb published a book cataloging 75 serious scientific answers to that single question. 75. And the terrifying thing is not that we lack an answer. The terrifying thing is that most of the answers are worse than the silence. We will come back to that number. We will come back to what it means that 75 brilliant minds, working independently, could not converge on a single explanation for why the sky is empty. But first, we need to understand why the sky should not be empty at all. In 1961, a radio astronomer named Frank Drake sat down at the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia and wrote an equation on a blackboard. It was not meant to give a final answer. It was meant to organize a conversation. The Drake equation multiplies 7 numbers together: the rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the fraction of planets that could support life, the fraction where life actually begins, the fraction where life becomes intelligent, the fraction where intelligence builds technology, and the length of time a technological civilization broadcasts before it falls silent. Plug in numbers even the pessimists would accept, and the galaxy should contain thousands of broadcasting civilizations. Plug in numbers that seem reasonable to most astrobiologists, and the number climbs into the millions. Now zoom out. There are an estimated 200 billion trillion stars in the observable universe. 200 billion trillion. If you were to start counting them at 1 per second, you would finish roughly 6 trillion years after the last star in the universe burns out. Most of those stars have planets. A significant fraction of those planets sit in the so-called habitable zone, where liquid water can exist. The numbers are not subtle. The numbers are crushing. And yet, for 65 years, we have been listening. The SETI project has scanned the sky with the Allen Telescope Array, with Arecibo before it collapsed in 2020, with the Green Bank Telescope, with the Parkes Observatory in Australia. Breakthrough. LISTEN, funded with $100 million by Yuri Milner in 2015, has surveyed over 1,000 nearby stars with unprecedented sensitivity. We have found nothing. Not a blip. Not a pattern. Not a pulse that could not be explained by a natural source or a microwave oven in the break room. The universe has been screaming mathematics at us, and we have heard nothing back. You thought the silence meant we were early. Actually, the math says we are late. You thought our instruments were not sensitive enough. Actually, we could detect a civilization like ours broadcasting from thousands of light years away. You thought space was simply too vast. Actually, a civilization only 1 million years older than us, a blink in cosmic terms, would have had time to colonize every star in the galaxy, not once but many times over. The physicist Michael Hart calculated in 1975 that even at speeds well below light, a single expansionist species could seed the entire Milky Way in under 100 million years. The galaxy is old enough to have been colonized 1,000 times. It has not been. Or if it has, we cannot see the colonizers. This is where the answers begin to get strange. one family of explanations says that we are not alone. We are contained. In 1973, the MIT radio astronomer John Ball proposed the zoo hypothesis. Imagine you are walking through a forest preserve. You see deer. You see rabbits. You do not interact with them. You do not teach them calculus. You watch from behind a fence, and you let them live whatever life a deer lives, undisturbed. Ball's argument was that a sufficiently advanced civilization might treat us the same way, not out of cruelty, out of ethics. We are the exhibit. The galaxy is the zoo. And the silence is deliberate. A variant of this, called the interdict hypothesis, goes further. It argues that there is not just one civilization watching us, there is an agreement among many, a galactic quarantine, a rule that younger species must be left alone until they reach some threshold. It sounds like science fiction, but the mathematics of game theory support it. If civilizations are rare and precious, destroying one by accident through first contact would be an atrocity. Silence under those rules becomes a moral imperative. Then there is the planetarium hypothesis, proposed by the British astronomer Stephen Baxter in 2001. This one is harder to sit with. Baxter argues that an advanced civilization with sufficient computational power could simulate our entire observable sky. Every photon that reaches your eye from a distant star could be a rendered photon. The silence is not the absence of neighbors. The silence is the wallpaper of the cell. You are looking at a painted sky. Now imagine you are a fish in a pond. You look up, you see shimmering light, you see shapes moving across the surface. You assume those shapes are the entire universe. You build a science around that surface. You derive laws from it. You die certain you understood everything. You never knew the pond was in a garden. You never knew the garden was on a planet. You never knew there was a sky above the surface of the water. The planetarium hypothesis asks us to consider that we might be the fish, and the quiet is the glass of the aquarium. These are the optimistic answers. They are the ones where we are not alone. They are the ones where intelligent life thrives somewhere, and the reason we cannot see it is because it has chosen, for reasons benign or incomprehensible, to let us remain ignorant. Sit with that for a moment. The optimistic answers. The comforting ones. They require us to accept that every star we see might be a lie, that every ethical decision we make is being watched by minds that dwarf our own, that our entire civilization might be a specimen in a jar on some alien shelf. And these are the hopeful scenarios, because the other answers are worse. In 1996, an economist at George Mason University named Robin Hanson proposed an idea that has kept astrobiologists up at night ever since. He called it the Great Filter. The argument goes like this. If the galaxy should be crowded with civilizations, and it is not, then something is stopping them. Somewhere between dead matter and galaxy-spanning empire, there is a wall, a filter, a step in the process that is so difficult, so improbable, so reliably catastrophic, that almost nothing makes it past. The question Hansen forced us to ask is not whether the filter exists. The question is where it sits. If the filter is behind us, if it was the leap from non-life to life, or the leap from single-celled to multicellular organisms, or the leap from animal intelligence to symbolic thought, then we are extraordinary. We are the survivors. We won a lottery so vast that no one else in the galaxy won it. That is the good news. That is the version where humanity is a miracle. If the filter is ahead of us, if it is some wall every civilization eventually hits, some technology every species inevitably develops and cannot survive, some ecological collapse, some war, some self-inflicted extinction, then the silence has a very different meaning. The silence is not a mystery. It is a warning. It is the echo of every civilization that came before us, ran the same experiments we are running, built the same tools we are building, and vanished. Hansen's insight was brutal. He pointed out that every piece of evidence suggesting life is common elsewhere, every exoplanet in a habitable zone, every hint of organic molecules on Mars, every potential biosignature in the clouds of Venus, is bad news for us. Because if life is easy, then the filter is late. If the filter is late, it is waiting. And we are walking toward it. This is the second thought experiment. Imagine you are walking through a long corridor. The corridor is lined with doors. Behind each door is a stage of civilizational development. The first door is life. The second door is complex life. The third door is intelligence. The fourth door is technology. The fifth door, the sixth door, the seventh. They stretch into the distance. Now imagine you open each door behind you and every room is empty. Every single one. Billions of rooms. No footprints, no bones, no ash. You turn forward. You look at the next door. And you realize something is very wrong. Because the corridor is not empty because no one started walking it. The corridor is empty because no one has ever finished. Some people argue that the great filter is an illusion, that we simply have not looked long enough, or listened in the right frequencies, or searched the right stars. The problem is that the paradox has survived every expansion of our search. We have looked harder every decade. We have found nothing every decade. The Russian physicist Nikolai Kardashev proposed in 1964 a scale for ranking civilizations by their energy use. Type 1 harnessing the power of a planet, Type 2 a star, Type 3 a galaxy. We see no Type 3 civilizations. We see no Dyson spheres. Those hypothetical megastructures a civilization might build to enclose its star and capture its full energy output. In 2015, astronomers analyzed data from the WISE satellite across 100,000 galaxies, looking for the waste heat signature of advanced civilizations. They found nothing anomalous. 100,000 galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars. Silent. There is one more family of answers, and it is the one that scientists speak of with the most careful, controlled voices. In 2008, the Chinese science fiction novelist Liu Cixin published a book that articulated an idea many astrobiologists had quietly considered for years. He called it the dark forest. The argument is game theoretic. It is brutal. It goes like this. Every civilization in the universe has two things in common. It wants to survive, and it cannot know with certainty what any other civilization wants. You cannot verify a stranger's intentions across light years. You cannot negotiate when your messages take 10,000 years to arrive. You can only guess. And in a universe where one civilization could, in theory, destroy another with a relativistic projectile, the rational move, the only rational move, is to remain silent. And if you ever detect another civilization, the rational move is to destroy it before it destroys you. The universe in this view is not empty. It is full. It is a forest at night. Every civilization is a hunter, crouched low, listening. The first one to speak dies. The ones who survive are the ones who learned long ago that silence is life and broadcasting is suicide. We, meanwhile, have been broadcasting for a century. Our radio signals have reached roughly 100 light-years in every direction, a sphere containing thousands of stars. We are the loud ones. We are the ones who have not yet learned the rule. This is where the weight begins to land. And I want you to stay with it for just a moment, because the chain of logic does not stop there. If the dark forest is real, then the civilizations we do not hear are the ones that are still alive. The ones we might hear are the ones about to die. And if the great filter is ahead of us, then the reason we cannot detect anyone is because intelligence itself is a dead-end trait. It selects for technologies that can destroy their creators. Nuclear weapons, engineered pandemics, runaway artificial intelligence, climate collapse. Every civilization invents the thing that kills it, and the galaxy becomes a graveyard of species that got smart just fast enough to build the bomb that ended them. The silence is not absence, the silence is aftermath. Now hold all 75 answers in your head at once. Think about what that means. The fact that 75 distinct, mathematically defensible, scientifically serious explanations exist is itself the most disturbing data point in the entire field, because it means we cannot rule any of them out. The zoo is possible. The planetarium is possible. The great filter behind us is possible. The great filter ahead of us is possible. The dark forest is possible. Mass self-destruction is possible. A rare Earth scenario in which life itself is astronomically improbable is possible. And every one of these, if true, rearranges everything you thought you understood about your place in the universe. This is the loop that closes. The question Fermi asked in that lunchroom in 1950 was not really about aliens. It was about us. It was about what the silence means for a species sitting on a single planet around a single star, broadcasting its existence into the dark, with no idea whether the dark is empty or merely patient. Every answer to the Fermi paradox is a mirror. If we are alone, we are cosmically precious and cosmically fragile. If we are not alone, we are either being watched, being quarantined, being simulated, or being hunted. There is no version of the truth that lets us go back to thinking we are ordinary. You were born onto a planet at a specific moment in the history of the universe. You were born into a species that has existed for roughly 300,000 years, which is 0.02% of the age of the Earth, which is itself only a third of the age of the galaxy. You inherited a sky that human beings have only been able to read properly for about 400 years, since Galileo pointed his telescope at Jupiter in 1610 and saw moons that should not have been there. You were given language and mathematics and the radio, and you were told that the universe is a vast and beautiful place, and you believed it, because it is. But the vastness has a texture you were not told about. It is silent in a way that silence is not supposed to be. It is old in a way that rules out innocence. Somewhere in the gap between the numbers that predict a crowded galaxy and the observations that show an empty one, there is a truth we do not yet have. It might be a truth that redeems us. It might be a truth that damns us. It might be a truth so strange that our brains, evolved on the savannah to track lions and count berries, cannot hold it. And the worst part, the part that keeps the astronomers awake, the part that Fermi himself could not shake once he asked the question, is that we will probably never know. Because the answer, whatever it is either being hidden from us by minds we cannot comprehend, or it is waiting for us in a future we may not survive, or it is encoded in a silence we have not yet learned to hear. We are not standing at the edge of a mystery we can solve. We are standing inside a mystery that is watching us try. Fermi died in 1954, 4 years after he asked the question. He never knew about the Drake equation, or the Great Filter, or the Dark Forest. He never saw the Kepler telescope confirm that planets are common. He never saw Breakthrough listen, scan 1,000 stars and return empty-handed. He asked his question, and then he left, and the question stayed, and it has grown heavier every year. It is heavier tonight than it has ever been. And somewhere out there, in a galaxy that should be crowded and is not, a star is burning on a planet that may have life, or may have had life, or may be waiting for life, or may be watching us through instruments we cannot imagine. The sky above you is the same sky Fermi looked up into that afternoon in New Mexico. The silence is the same silence. The question is the same question. Where is everybody? They are somewhere. Or they were. Or they never were. And not knowing which of those three is true may be the single most important unknown in the history of our species. The universe is vast and old and quiet. We are small and new and loud. The math says we should not be alone. The sky says we are. And between those two facts is a door that has never been opened, and behind it is something we are either not ready to see, or something that is not ready to be seen, or something that has already decided what happens to us next. We just haven't heard it yet.